Shabbat Shalom. Very, very good to be here. Even the circumstances, I'm very happy to be reunited with the family here. Thank you for having me. My name is Olivier Melnick. I've been here before a couple of times, and so here we are again. And I'll tell you a little bit about the ministry if I have time at the end. What's my drop dead? I'm looking at the time right now. Tomorrow? Okay. All right. Works for me. And I only have my computer here to read at my notes in case, because I'm of that age where the big is still not big enough. So I just want to make sure that I have a backup here. So I'll tell you a little bit about the ministry, but in a nutshell, where we are today is no surprise to me, no surprise to most of you, as far as anti-Semitism and what's going on in the world. And I had to make a move about three months ago to continue doing more of what the Lord was asking me to do in a way that I could actually get more involved. So I had to leave Chosen People Ministries after 26 years. And my wife and I talked about it at length. Because she said, 65-year-old, I thought we were going to start slowing down. And so, not really. But I am comforted knowing that I'm actually, at 65-year-old, I'm 15 years ahead of Moses. He didn't start until he was 80. So, what can I tell you? So, but back to that at the end. I thought about what to do, and you know, Yom HaShoah is a time for us to remember, and that's very, very important to remember. We're here to remember the victims, and I'm so glad that your congregation added the victims of October 7th, which, by the way, you already know that, I'm sure, but October 7th is recognized in Jewish history now as the second largest death toll in the history of the Jews the first one since the Holocaust. I mean, the Holocaust was 6 million. We just read their numbers with the 90,000 from France, where I'm from originally, and October 7th was the largest death toll since the Holocaust. So this is a big number. Something changed on October 7th. The world is not going back to where it was before since October 7th. And you're going to see things going worse, and actually you're already seeing it on the news. So I know that we are going to remember, but we are now faced with people that know very little about history. The next generation knows almost nothing about history. They buy anything that's on the internet. By the way, I was thinking about this morning when I was, preparing for going over my notes. I'm thinking, there's a reason why I like to buy books and not Kindle. It's because I tell you for several reasons that things might get censored more and more and more. But also with AI and all the stuff that's coming up, we don't know what's true anymore. A book, I have a better chance of knowing that it was written when it was written. And so anyway, that's just a little side note. I was thinking about all the things because what I want to do this morning is I want to talk about the title is The Proliferation of Anti-Semitic Conspiracy Theories. What does it have to do with Yom HaShoah? Well, actually, the Shoah took place because of 2,000 years of anti-Semitism, which was the culmination of everything that had happened. The Holocaust did not happen in a vacuum. I've said this many times. And because of all those theories that were put on the Jews, like this is what they're responsible for, and this and that, then we got to the Shoah, to the catastrophe, to the Holocaust. And right now we're at a place where there's going to be a lot of people pushing the false agendas and trying to destroy the Jews, because that's the end times. That's where we are going. But there's always going to be people who are misinformed and who are willing to learn and change their minds. And those are the people that we need to worry about. There's going to be a lot of people that you talk to that are they're not going to change their minds. They're going to say, well, this is the way it is. I don't care what you say. Don't confuse me with the facts. That's it. But then, and I don't waste any time with those. I don't waste any time with those when they put comments on my YouTube channel, when they send me letters or emails, or I don't waste any time. If they honestly ask a question, I say, okay, you know what? Let's talk. Because if there's a chance they can change their mind on the truth, then we can make progress. Because by changing their mind on the truth and looking at really what happened in history, then we're looking at these people changing. They have a heart change, and then they can become the people that I call the new righteous among the nations. And I'll circle back on that at the end of my message. So I want to look at 3 conspiracy theories, because what I want to do is I want to give you the history of it, how bad it was, and what it did to the Jews, and how to debunk it, which is really not that complicated, really, when people take the time. And Judge, I just want to equip you a little bit, but I almost forgot. I want to read you, I want to start with this quote from this great book. I read the dissertation, the PhD dissertation of this man, Dr. Barry Leventhal, years ago, the typewriter format 30 years ago. This is a brand new version. This is called Where Was God? Theological Perspectives on the Holocaust. I'm in the process of rereading it because I was asked to do I was asked to do a book review. So pray for me because it's due very soon. And just saying that. Just pray for me. But he's quoting in there a man by the name of Raoul Hilberg. Raoul Hilberg is, he wrote this book called The Destruction of European Jews, I believe in 1979 it was published. And I've quoted Raoul Hilberg before in some of my works, and I think this really makes a lot of sense. So I'm quoting Raoul Hilberg here. Since the 4th century after Christ, and I'm reading it exactly the way it was written, so I mean, Christ, Messiah, Mashiach, Yeshua. I mean, I'm quoting a person, so it's going to be the words he used. Since the 4th century after Christ, there have been 3 anti-Jewish policies: conversion, expulsion, and annihilation. The second appeared as an alternative to the first, and the third as an alternative to the second. The Nazi destruction process did not come out of a void. It was the culmination of a cyclical trend. We have observed the trend in 3 successive goals of anti-Jewish administrators. The missionaries of Christianity had said, in effect, you have no right to live among us as Jews. The secular rulers who followed had proclaimed, you have no right to live among us. The German Nazis at last decreed, you have no right to live. That was a progression. That was not something that happened overnight. So in an effort to equip us, I'm big on trying to equip people, and so in an effort to equip us and understand what's going on, I want to talk about those 3 conspiracy theories. This is what I'm using. Okay, this looks too fancy for me. The green button is the... Thank you. This was very, very intimidating. There's only one button to push. I didn't know what to do. I need prayer. Okay, so far I can read it. So I'm going to talk about the Khazars. You're like, Olivier, the Khazars, what's the big deal? You're going to find out. You're going to find out. This is, actually, it's going to interesting, fascinating story. I'm going to talk about the Rothschilds because, God knows, the Jews, we control the banks, right? So we're going to find out what's going on with that. And the protocols of the elders of Zion. And all comes together. The Khazars, I can't read this, so I'm going to have to... but that's okay. I got it on my screen. So the country of Khazaria was located between Turkey and Russia in the northern Caucasus region. The Khazars became independent of the Turkic Empire at the beginning of the 7th century. They settled and dominated an area between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea. So it really is a place that existed. A lot of people don't know too much about it. Their independence lasted for about 2 centuries. A campaign was launched against them from Kiev in 965, and by 4 years later, Khazaria was fully conquered and completely absorbed by Russia. They completely disappeared by the middle of the 13th century. Around 740, this is where it gets interesting. Around 740, King Bulan of the Khazars, it is said that he had a desire to embrace religion, so he said, hey, I want to pick the best. So I'm going to request of a Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew to come and just explain to me what the best is. King Bulan chose Judaism, converted to Judaism, and influenced others to do the same. And it goes anywhere from him and his immediate family to some members of his court to the entire country of Khazaria. So the record is very, very wide on how many people converted to Judaism. It is a true story. It did happen. Now, but we don't know how many people really converted in the country of Khazaria, which had apparently no Jewish connection. It was just Gentiles saying, like, we like it, we want to convert to Judaism. By the way, biblically speaking, just a side note here, when you convert to Judaism, I hope I don't open a can of worms here, but that's my specialty. If you come to my Bible study at my church or online, my specialty is to open cans of worms and to go on rabbit trails. What can I say? I like animals. So when you convert to Judaism biblically, you become a proselyte to Judaism. You don't become a Jew ethnically. You can't do that. Just like a Jew ethnically cannot un-Jew himself or herself. You're Jewish, you're born Jewish, you'll die a Jew. And so a conversion means it's a conversion to a religion, not to an ethnic state. That's important to understand. And a perfect example is Ruth, who before she told Naomi that she wanted to have her people become her people, was called a Moabite. And after she said, my people, your people will be my people, I'll go with you. After that happened in the book of Ruth, after chapter 3, she is also described as a Moabite. So she remained a Moabite before and after. She just decided to embrace the law of Moses and the Jewish people, which is not, that's what she did. That's just an example. So back to the Khazars, there's a couple of historical figures that actually wrote on the Khazars. In the 10th century, Spanish Jewish scholar Hasdai ibn Shaprut was made aware of the story of the Khazars, and decided to send emissaries to the region to investigate, to see, is this true? Is there like a Jewish community over there? This is very, very interesting. So he sent people. They were not successful. They never got to meet any of the Khazars, but they received letters from this King Joseph, apparently, and it turned out that the letters were actually forgeries, so that didn't go anywhere. And then, later on, actually in a book that's still in Jewish writings today, a book known as the Kuzari, a book of argument in defense of a despised religion, written in the 12th century as a novel and giving preference to Judaism over other faith, written by Yehuda Halevi. That's a statue of him on the screen, where Judaism is defended over religions. But that's a book that talks a little bit about the Khazars in a novel form, not as a historical report, and 500 years later. The reason why I'm telling you all this is because I'm setting the stage on the Khazars, and I hope you understand. It's a story. It's something that exists. It existed. It happened. But there's a lot of. It's very foggy, very nebulous. We don't really know details. But the less we know, and that is human nature. We do it with the Bible. The less we know about a passage or a verse, the more we like to speculate. And sometimes, as we speculate on a verse, we ignore the important one before or after that God really wants us to concentrate on, and we miss the point. You've never done that. I do it regularly. So, big deal about the Khazars. They came, they converted, they left, they died. There's no more Khazaria. Why am I talking about this? I'm glad you asked. 1976, Arthur Koestler wrote this book, The 13th Tribe, and he advanced the theory that all modern Jews living at that time, in 76 and forward, are descendants of the Khazars. descendants of people who were Gentiles who converted to Judaism. So, what's the big deal? Well, I forgot to see. I got two to. There you go. Okay, a convenient approach to delegitimizing Israel and the Jewish people right to the land. If the Khazars are the Jews, and the real Jews are not the real Jews, then the Jewish people today who claim that they own the land, biblically speaking, they're not the Judean Jews, they're not the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then the Khazars are, they're a fraud. They're not the real Jews. So it's really a good point to make, if you can prove it, that you can delegitimize the Jews being in the land. The Jews are then indeed occupiers, colonizers, and they're not even the real Jews. I guess Hitler made a mistake. He got the wrong Jews. What can I tell you? This is what Kessler said. The large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European and perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, and when he says Khazar origin, he means converted. They were not real Jews. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, the Uyghur, the Magyar tribes, than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what he's saying. I am aware of the danger. At least he said that. I am aware of the danger, but that was in 1976, okay? I am aware of the danger that it may be maliciously misinterpreted as a denial of the state of Israel's right to exist. But that right, crazy, listen to this. That right is not based on the apathetic origins of the Jewish people, nor on the mythological covenant of Abraham with God. It is based on international law, i.e., on the United Nations decision in 1947. So what Kessler is saying here, pseudo scholar is saying there's no biblical foundation for the existence of Israel. And if that's the case, then it's easier to sell the theory of the Khazars. This was confirmed by another man that I don't really respect a whole lot, but you got to quote everybody. The man's name is Shlomo Sands in The Invention of the Jewish People. Right there, the title is going to be a good book based on truth. The Invention of the Jewish People. Shlomo Sands validates Kessler's view, and when he says, in the 70s, Israel was caught up in the momentum of territorial expansion. Wanted to, grow. And without the Old Testament in its hand and the exile of the Jewish people in its memory, it would have been no justification for annexing Arab Jerusalem and establishing settlements in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and even the Sinai Peninsula. So there you have another man, and those two, Shlomo Sands and Art Kessler, basically accusing Israel of not being the legitimate Israel that we know they are, okay? There's even a numismatic evidence, coins, money, to further validate the Jewish hypothesis. Some claim that in 830, a coin with the name of Moses makes a direct connection to the Jewishness of the Khazars. Whew, that's big. Unfortunately, other coins, such as early Polish coins, also have Jewish references, proving nothing about Jewish conversion in Poland. So it's very, very weak. So how do we debunk that? Well, in 1896, there was this discovery known as the Cairo Geniza, was one of the greatest Jewish discovery. It contains some 400,000 medieval Jewish manuscripts. That was before the 1948 Dead Sea Scrolls. And in those manuscripts, they discovered this thing that became known as the Schechter letter, or the Geniza letter. And by the way, you can get all my notes. I'll connect you to get all the notes because it's a lot of information. The Schechter letter is only a fragment of the original document, but it differs from the account found in the Khuzaria, or the Hasdai Ibn Shaprut letters, in that it claims that Jews from Persia and Armenia fled persecution and found refuge in Khazaria. What's the big difference? They were Jews. They were Jews who fled persecution. So when they came to Khazaria, they were descendants of Judean Jews, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's a big difference. Now, there is a man by the name of Eran Elaik in the Journal of Genome Biology and Evolution. Now, you know that just by the title that I understand nothing about it, okay? So just to make that clear. But he said that he wrote the results of his research on the missing link of Jewish European ancestry contrasting the Rhineland and the Khazarian hypothesis, and it's actually, he is being used by both sides, but in it he says European Jews is a tapestry of ancient populations including Judaized Khazars, Greco-Roman Jews, Mesopotamian Jews, and Judeans. So he, who's not really a friend of the Jewish people, actually, like we would be, he speaks of a Jewish melting pot that includes converts, Judean Jews, like Ashkenazi, Sephardic, a mix of different kind of Jewish people. And that's really who we are today. We are a mix of, Jewish people are a melting pot. But in the end, he says, and that their population structure was formed in a Caucasus on the banks of the Volga with roots stretching to Canaan and the banks of the Jordan. So in genetics, the Khazar theory in archaeology with the Chirogeniza, in genetics has been completely debunked, and then in the DNA, which came out, just a few decades ago, one of the key researchers in that area wrote a book. His name is Kevin Allen Brooke. He shows up every time you do a search. He's like the top result, so I had to end up getting his book, The Jews of Khazaria. By this analysis, we can show that the dominant ethnic element among Eastern European Jews is Judean. Shocker! They're not Khazars. The ancient Jewish people of Judea in the Middle East. They're not Khazars. But I go to conferences, I speak to people, I post videos, and people says, what about the Khazars theory? Is it true that the Jews are descendants of the Khazars? The question is being asked, and the only reason it is being promoted is, there's only one reason. Because if it's true, if it's believed, then the modern Jews of today have no right to the land. That's the only reason why, because this really became an issue in 1976. Before that, which was 3 years after Yom Kippur War, to give you some perspective. Before that, nobody cared. So, questions to ask. Let's see, I've already got that. Why is there complete silence from the Jews of Mesopotamia, the Babylon and Mesopotamia? Mesopotamia means the land between the rivers, regarding the Khazars' conversion. There's no talk about anywhere in the records of the Jews of that time, nor in the Talmud. Nothing about the Khazars. They even talk about Yeshua in the Talmud. Not at length and not in a very good light. But they talk about him. Nothing in the Talmud. Who converted the Khazars? Nobody knows. How many Khazars converted? Nobody knows. What happened to them? Nobody knows. It's very, very, very foggy at best. And of course, archaeology and DNA have completely debunked the theory. So, I have more books that I could point you to if you're interested, but we need to move forward if we want to finish before tomorrow. So, the Rothschild. I have to tell you, I knew a little about the Rothschild, and I knew a little bit about him, but I learned a lot in my research, and it's a big family, I'll tell you that much, okay? Big family, and fascinating family, so let me give you a little bit about how they came about, and then what's been, said about them, and how it can easily be debunked. The Mayer Amschel Rothschild was the founder of the family. He was of the banking dynasty. Was the son of Jewish merchants from Frankfurt Ghetto, born in 1744. Orphans at age 12 with 4 brothers or siblings, I should say, to take care of, which he did. He became an apprentice to a banker, and he became the personal dealer. Money exchange, money dealer, not like a drug dealer. Personal dealers, it sounded okay when I wrote it, but personal dealer of the Crown Prince William I in 1763, and began to amass his fortune as the French Revolution started in 1789. The French Revolution. That's when French people knew how to fight. It goes back to 1789. I can say it, I'm French. I was French. You know how many French people it takes to defend France? Nobody knows, it's never been done. Origins of the Rothschilds. So he delegated the banking business to his 5 sons across Europe. And really, I mean, look at the 5 sons spreading across the big, I think there was like Germany, England, France, I want to say the Netherlands, and one more I forgot. They became major lenders to various countries during the Napoleonic Wars, the Napoleon's Wars. But the sons, I found this in my reading, the sons were so spread out in Europe around the time of Napoleon, when they were amassing their fortune and in structuring the banking system that they were so good at. The sons were so spread out that there was not really one country, a significant country in Europe that had no connection to the Rothschild or had borrowed money from them. And sometimes the sons would find themselves on both sides of the same conflict. There would be a war, and one son would be financing one side, the other would be financing. So not the best choices, I give you that much. Here's an interesting story. The Rothschild name became synonymous with wealth and philanthropy, but it also became the symbol of modern Jewish capitalism. Most of you know Fiddler on the Roof. The original book written by Sholem Aleichem, it was written in Yiddish originally, and the song for Tevye, If I Were a Rich Man, in Yiddish it actually reads, Wenn ich bin Rothschild, if I were Rothschild, which was not a bad thing. It was just like, if I had the money, if I was a banker. So let's face it, okay? And that's the big thing. People say Jewish people are greedy, we love money, and it goes back to something I'll tell you in a minute. But Jewish people, generally speaking, we don't want to say for every single Jew, but generally speaking, Jewish people are good with money. We're shrewd. We have a good sense of business. It is one of the things we have, okay? We're not very good with our hands. The only Jewish carpenter who was really good was Yeshua. We usually hire Gentiles because we can pay a Gentile to do a much better job than we can. Okay, so this is not a racist joke, by the way. It's true. Ask my wife. I'm terrible with my hands. And she always asks me to fix things at the house. I say, can we pay somebody to do it? I'm Jewish. My toolbox is a butter knife. My Gentile neighbor, he's got like a power tools. So, we're good. We're shrewd. We are good business people. We're not really good with our hands, most of us. So let's look at the image that starts to develop of the Rothschild. This is an 1830 anti-Semitic cartoon called The 11th Commandment, describing the Rothschild dynasty. It's supposed to be a Jewish man, and it's supposed to be the Rothschild, and it says, get all you can get, keep what you get, give away nothing. In other words, money. We, the Jews, are all about money. What about this one? 1845, a cartoon called General Pump depicted Mayor Amschel Rothschild as a mean-looking gold dispenser to a world banker. At the same time, he's taking advantage of the little people, lending money everywhere, and just controlling the banking system. This is a very famous cartoon for that topic. This you might have even seen on book covers. This is 1898. It's interesting. It's about like a year or two after the Dreyfus affair. 1898, the cartoon Rothschild. It's just called Rothschild. A Jew controlling. Look at the hands, like those claws. The whole banking dynasty controlling the entire world. A Jewish demon, demonic hands holding the world. Then there's a series of cartoons that were published around the same time in this little magazine in France called Musée des Horreurs, Museum of Horrors. And they were depicting the Rothschild dynasty, one after the other, as animals. Like this is Charlotte Mayer as a monkey, and it's also connecting her to the Dreyfus Affair. Then you have Alphonse Rothschild counting money with claws. Then you have a dog, Nathan Rothschild, I'll talk about this in a second. He was supposed to take an advantage of the Waterloo, Napoleon's war, where the last is defeat at Waterloo in Belgium. So here is making money on Waterloo. And then you got a more recent one. This is like just very recent. 21st century cartoon of a pig feeding piglets as a multinational banking controlled by the Rothschild family. Right there. Let me show it to you. Hold on. There you go right there. The pig feeding, and you've got the, you look at all the England and the ISIS, Al-Qaeda, CIA, Israel, Boko Haram. Everybody's in the mix. The Rothschild are basically, what does it say here? They're financing both sides. They're financing Israel, and they're financing Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They are like the terrorists. And the myth lives on. An 1851 cartoon about Baron Rothschild's small beginnings, how he started. It says, Herr Baron, that boy just stole your handkerchief, so let him go. We had to start out small too. So he's saying, like, we the Jews started small. And that cartoon, of course, is an anti-Semitic cartoon, and it's based on this idea, which is the root of the problem. During the Middle Ages, the Jews were allowed to lend money, but the Christians were not. So Christians borrowed from Jews, and the people who were controlling the nobles and the kings and the princes, and they were controlling the Europe of the time. They realized that Jewish people were lending money, and they were making a little money interest on their system of banking, because they couldn't do anything else. They couldn't be part of a guild. They couldn't own property. They couldn't own a business. They were like forced to basically, they couldn't do anything. So they ended up becoming bankers, and that's kind of like what led to the Rothschild to, going into the banking business. But the leaders raised the interest rate that they charged, the taxes they charged on the Jews, so the Jews had to raise their interest rate a little more. So that, because it would be like, they're charging taxes, which is more than I'm getting on the interest that I'm charging the people borrowing money. And it went back and forth for a while. And that led to the ever-existing, to this day, myth of the greedy Jew. Are Jews greedy? Some are, but they're not alone. There's Gentiles who are greedy. You know why? Because greed is not there's no ethnic connection to greed. Greed is in human nature. You can be a greedy Jew or a greedy Gentile. You can be a good-looking Jew or a good-looking Gentile and Jews. So it's the greed is not attached to the ethnic condition, and that's the big thing. The big thing we need to remember. A couple more cartoons here, and then we'll keep moving. They're doing better. They're listening faster than last year. The myth lives on. The way of the Red Sea is a way of blood. A bunch of bankers, all with big Jewish noses, because, we all have big Jewish noses, of course. 1944 Italian anti-Semitic cartoon depicting Jewish bankers carrying money bags past dead soldiers. Here is one that I actually own. This is a little wood painting. It's about that big. And I bought it in Poland in 2010 when I went to visit Auschwitz. It's sold everywhere on the marketplace in Poland. It's a Jew counting his money, and on the bottom right of it, it's hard to see, there's a coin that's actually glued to that little wood painting. And that is, you hang it in your house, and it's your lucky Jew counting his money, so you will become wealthy. I bought this in 2010. I promise you, they still sell them. It's, very popular, different sizes, and superstitious thing about, get your lucky Jew, get your lucky Jewish greedy money counter so you can be wealthy as well. So, of course, the Rothschild were also described in the International Jew, which is a publication that was printed by Henry Ford in 1920 for a few years. It was seen by Ford as the epitome of the Jewish financial world. To Henry Ford, the Rothschild family became the symbol of Jewish banking control. And he basically... he described them, and it's in the notes, but we need to keep moving here, so I'm not going to read those. I'm going to skip it. I just want to go to the reasons now. Possible reasons for the Rothschild's greed theory. Okay, so the Battle of Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild rushed to the coast of Belgium at the end of the Battle of Waterloo through the English Channel, and he paid, I think, £4,000 at the time, which was just for him. It was a lot of money just to get out. Arrived in London a day before the news, and there was no internet back then in Napoleon's time. Arrived in London a day before the news of Napoleon's defeat, and apparently it allowed him to make a tremendous fortune. The story was a hoax. Nathan Rothschild was nowhere near Waterloo region at that time. Okay, but that's what people believe. Also, another possibility is the reason for the Rothschild greed theory is coming from Wilhelm Marr, who is the man who coined the word anti-Semitism in 1879. He had worked with a family close to the Rothschild and had been turned down in 1841 for a promotion that he thought should have been given to him, but was given to a less deserving Jew. In one of his memoirs, Wilhelm Marr wrote, "The Goy had to bear the consequences of the economic crisis." In other words, they gave the job to a Jew who didn't deserve it, and I didn't get the job. So maybe he had something to do with promoting falsehood against the Rothschild. Or maybe it was Edmond de Rothschild, who was a strong supporter of Zionism. The known benefactor was his name, that they like to call him. And the Palestine Jewish Colonization Association, remember, you know me by now, when I speak of Palestine, historically, until 1948, I speak of a landmass that is the Jewish land. It became a political word after 48. I'm not going to go into that, but I just want to make that clear. He purchased a total of more than 120,000 acres in Palestine. These massive land purchases gave credence to the anti-Semitic claims that the Jews, again, we want to control everything. But it was really a good thing to purchase the land and help it grow. Now, another interesting gentleman is this one. Big family, the Rothschild. Lionel Walter Rothschild served on the Zionist Federation, and it was to this Lord Rothschild that Lord Balfour addressed his short but powerful 1917 letter known as the Balfour Declaration, which was instrumental in the process of the rebirth of Israel as a modern state for the Jewish people. Now, I want you to understand how crazy the world we live in has become, and how far people will go to hurt the Jews or anything connected to Israel and the Jews. About a month ago, at the University of Cambridge in England, a young woman went in one of the halls, and there was a big painting on the wall, about probably the size of the backdrop here, and she sprayed, and I have the video, and I have the whole thing. She sprayed red on the face of the man, and she slashed the whole painting, priceless painting from 100 years ago. That was a painting of Lord Balfour.
Was she arrested?
No.
She destroyed it?
And well, you know what? I don't know if she was arrested. Maybe she, not originally, but anyway, but what I want you to understand is this. Lord Balfour is a man who wrote a very short, I think it's 52 words, a declaration, the Balfour Declaration as we know it, in 1917. And gave it to Lord Rothschild. That was one of the piece of the puzzle. The San Remo conference in 1920 was another piece of the puzzle. So it's not just the Balfour Declaration, but it was the key element that got it started towards, Israel reborn as a nation. So the man who wrote the declaration, a painting of the man who wrote the declaration that would lead to the rebirth of Israel, had to be destroyed. It's a perfect example of, we don't like it, we destroy it. It's a cancel culture. And it has a very, very distant connection with the Jewish people today. It can't stay. It has to be destroyed. What's interesting is that the same painter, I looked it up, the same painter, he was from Hungary, I think. He painted famous people. And I wrote an article on my blog at shalomandmessiah.com. The same artist who did all the paintings of the famous people of his time in the 1900s did a very famous painting of Benito Mussolini, the Italian dictator of the Second World War. That painting is intact because, the deeds of Israel and Balfour are a lot worse than Benito Mussolini. So Mussolini's safe, Israel has to go. That's the world we live in. Okay, so let me move to, I have another 10, 15 minutes. Am I good? Okay, all right. Because, what we can also do is I can take the next speaker, I can just take his time. Oh, you'll kill me? Okay, I can't do that then. I gotta keep moving. I would never do this to you. I'm looking forward to hear what you have to say. The greedy Jew. The Rothschild were very rich and influential and most likely not squeaky clean. Who's squeaky clean? No, none of us. We all need a redeemer. We all need Jesus, Yeshua, amen? And so they were probably not squeaky clean in every decision they made, but when they used poor judgment, or even greed in some cases maybe, they happened to be fallen sinners in need of a redeemer first, and Jewish second. Always remember this. They were Jewish people first, and just like the same when you read in the Bible, all those synagogue of Satan and your father the devil and all, or all those verses that people take out of context as they see that this is all against those Jews that's so bad. When the Jewish people are in some places are accused of those things in the New Testament, they happen to be people making the wrong calls, the wrong judgment, the wrong decision, and they also happen to be Jewish. But the wrong decisions they're making have nothing to do with their ethnicity at all. And certainly doesn't carry over for the next 2,000 years like people think it should. So the irrational claim that their greed, desire to control the banks and the world would be based on their Jewish roots is no more valid than a claim that all Germans are Nazis or all Muslims are terrorists. That would be the same. And we just can't say that. 3. Last one. The protocols. The protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Those are just covers of the protocols, and you've seen some of them maybe. And I have several articles on that on my blog, on my website. So the origins and the protocols, I had to dig a little deeper to find out about the protocols, and it was quite interesting. They were created, leave it to the French. They were created from the plagiarism of Maurice Joly's Dialogue in Hell between Machiavelli and Montesquieu, a satire against Napoleon III. The very first documented publication of the protocols was 1903 in a book called Program for the Conquest of the World by the Jews. And that was, but then it got reworked. The current version of the protocols, which, by the way, they sell them on Amazon. They still sell them on Amazon. I guess it's freedom of the press. Don't waste your money. It's also as a free file, as a PDF, all over the internet. If you want it, I have it. Don't waste your money. But the current version was first published in 1905 by Sergei Nilus, a Russian mystic. He claimed that they were the minutes from the first Zionist Congress that took place in Switzerland in 1897. They were translated in German, in many other languages, and to this day they're translated in a lot of different languages. Now, bear with me here because I made the discovery literally a week ago, and I shared it with Rob. I wanted to share this with you because there's a connection that I don't want to miss. It's again, there's a lot, when it comes to Jewish people, there's a lot of double standards are used against Israel and the Jewish people. And there is one that I just discovered that I did not think, I didn't see the connection until very recently. I was at a conference in Ohio. Actually, it was last week. And a good friend, John Haller, made a comment to me, and I went like, oh, yeah, I never thought of that. And I looked into it, and sure enough. So the big lie, just one slide, and now I'll get back into the protocols, but there's a connection to the protocols. The big lie, Jewish leaders, that's the protocols. That's what the book is supposed to be. Jewish leaders are accused of plotting to take over the government, the banks, the business, education, religion, family, the arts, and more. That's the big lie. And that is not true. It's a lie. But that is a very bad accusation. The Jews want to control the government, the banks, the business, every aspect of society. That's really bad. And then you have the big deception. Something that you might have heard about, something that maybe you might have not heard about, known as the 7 mountains of influence of the New Apostolic Reformation, or NAR. It's a Christian movement right now that is extremely prevalent all over evangelicalism, that says that Christians are supposed to be influential in making a difference to change and control family, religion, education, media, the arts, entertainment, business, and government. And that is good, according to New Apostolic Reformation, which is a false teaching. It's also known as dominionism or kingdom now theology. We Christians, if we do good, if we control all those things, will bring the kingdom of God faster. Friends, I have news for you. The only one who can bring the kingdom is the King. That's HaShoah, HaMashiach, when he returns. He's right now at the right hand of the Father. He's going to come back at the end of the tribulation. He's going to establish his kingdom. Not in Orange. Sorry. Not even in Dallas, where I live now. In Jerusalem. From the throne of David. And we're going to be co-regents with King Messiah. That's going to happen. But there's no way we can bring the kingdom. What we can do is we can further the kingdom by bringing people into the kingdom, by leading people to the Lord. Yes, that we can do. But only the King can inaugurate the kingdom. And that will happen at the end of the 7-year tribulation. Let me wrap this up because I really want to, I keep forgetting to do all this, I'm sorry. It's bad. The slides are really big, but I need new glasses. Okay, so I'll go quick because I want to tell you a few words about the ministry. I got another 5 minutes. Okay, I'm good? Okay, I'm self-conscious because there's another speaker behind me, so I got to respect that. I want him to have a good understanding. I think that the French people are nice people because we have a bad reputation. So I want to be thought of as the only good Frenchman that's left. Okay, that didn't work. All right. So in the early 1920s, for about a year and a half, the protocols were published by Henry Ford, and in his newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, as a book that I told you about, also the Rothschild, the International Jew. Eventually, Ford was sued, and he had to retract, and he had to apologize. But Ford is the only American who received a medal from Hitler. In 1938, for his 75th birthday, he received the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest Nazi award to a foreigner. Hitler had a picture of Ford on his desk. He really thought very highly of Ford. So he promoted the protocols, which really are not, they've been debunked within years, couple of years, 10 years. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia in 1925 had him published in Arabic. Here he is. Here is the cover. And they're still published to this day in many Muslim countries for reasons that you would understand. The Jews want to control the world. That's a good reason to get rid of the Jews. What about the Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser? He also produced a booklet based on the protocols. You see that, what do you call it, octopus controlling. Now let's briefly look at their weakness. They have been exposed as a forgery since the 1920s. They came out in the early 1900s. Hugo Valentin, which is a historian at the University of Uppsala in Sweden, characterized the protocols as the greatest forgery of the century, of the 20th century. Father Pierre Charles, a professor of theology at the Jesuit College of Louvain, France, stated, "It has been proved that these protocols are a fraud, a clumsy plagiarism made from the purpose of rendering the Jews odious." And in 1964, the Senate Judiciary Committee, that's when they used to do good things, issued a report repudiating the protocols. Every age and country has had its share of fabricated historic documents which have been foisted on an unsuspecting public for some malign purpose. One of the most notorious and most durable of these is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. So I want to read something to you that came from a book that I also had to get for this, called A Lie and a Libel, by Benjamin Siegel, A Lie and a Libel. And in this, he puts together all the different things that the protocols are said to be. And it becomes very funny, actually. To bring into harmony the various contradictory assertions, there is only one thing left for us to do. We must accept all of them as true. Just as Homer was said to have had been born in 7 Greek cities simultaneously, so Nilus translated the protocols from the French and the Hebrew simultaneously. They originated at the Basel Zionist Congress of 1897 and at the same time in the lecture notes of Paris students. They were stolen by a noble woman of Chernigov from a high Masonic dignitary and at the same time by the dignitary's wife or lover. This lady gave it to Nilus, a friend, Sukhotin, who simultaneously appropriated from an extensive book of protocols or lecture notes he had found hidden in an iron chest at Zionist headquarters in France, but also in Alsace and Switzerland. They were also stolen from Herzl's house in Vienna and the secret vault of the Mitzrayim Lodge. They were delivered to Nilus in 1897 by a Russian spy, and equally by Sukhotin in 1901. At the same time, the French translation of a Hebrew original was sent from Paris by Rashkovsky to the Russian Interior Ministry in 1897 and then delivered to Nilus. And all this is being believed by some people about the protocols. It's just the entire protocols, by the way, in the entire protocols, nobody ever knows the identity or location of the most powerful man on earth, the supreme leader of the elders of Zion. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who he is, what's his name, what's his origin, or where they are, where he is. Nothing. Basically, the protocols, I want to read this. Let's see if I want to read this or not. No, I'm gonna stop right here. But also, there's a couple of places, and it's in my notes. So I'll give you the notes if you're interested. I'll send them to Rob, and you'll forward them. There were several places in the protocols when they talk about things that happened with certain people that actually happened at the wrong date. In other words, it's like saying, like, when the French Revolution took place in 1785, this is what the protocol was saying about, wait a minute, the French Revolution didn't start until 1789. So there are things like this in the protocols. But the people who believe them, to this day, do not want to be bothered with the facts. And that's the word we live in. So let me wrap this up. You thought you never heard that. Here we are. Irrational. You've heard me say this before. It hasn't changed. It's only getting worse. All these lies, all these conspiracy theories are all coming from Satan, the master of lies. Zechariah 33, 1 and 2, 1 Peter 5, 8, 9, 2 Thessalonians 2, 1, and 1 through 12. He has the ability and the desire to make the irrational look and sound rational. He is, as you've heard me say from this pulpit before, he is the creator of anti-Semitism. And right now he's having a blast. And so many people are buying it. It is so disgusting. Ignoring that Satan is behind all aspects of anti-Semitism is blinding those who want to fight the oldest hatred. We cannot fight anti-Semitism if we do not understand that we are in a spiritual battle. I have hundreds of books on the Holocaust and on anti-Semitism on my shelves. Hundreds. I'm telling you right now, except for a few Jewish believers and a few Christians, Gentile Christians, and when I say a few, maybe a dozen, maybe a little more. Those hundreds of books from historians and incredible scholars that I respect from their knowledge of that field, none of them make the connection between anti-Semitism and Satan. None of them see it. And I hear those great lectures and I see those things about, they're talking about it's in the human DNA to hate people and to want to take control, and that's why they hate the Jews, and never a mention of Satan. And of course, never a mention of God either. So, you need to understand that we are in a spiritual battle. It is all part of Satan's desire to turn the world against the Jews and the Jews against Yeshua, which he's been working on. You know, he tried to stop the first coming, didn't work. He's going to try to stop the second coming. And it's not going to work. What we need to do, and I'll spend a few minutes on the third one, we need to pray regularly against the father of lies. We need to provide others with the truth, which is what I tried to do this morning, and I hope that you can take the notes and maybe use them to help some people who want to learn and maybe have a change of heart about the Jews, and prepare to rescue and shelter our Jewish friends. Let me spend the next 5 minutes as I wrap up to tell you about this, okay? About 4 years ago, I got together with a group of men and women, like-minded believers. And we thought, that was maybe a little more than 4 years ago, maybe 4.5 years ago. And we thought, what's going to happen when it gets really bad for the Jewish people, even just like in America? What are we going to do? And we had this similar vision. And I'm not talking about like lights from the sky. And the Lord impressed on our hearts from different parts of the U.S., like, in the West Coast, East Coast, the North, the South, impressed on our hearts that we needed to prepare, do something. What can we do? So we started to develop this secret network. This is a network, the best I can explain it is a underground railroad for Jews. What's going to happen to the Jewish people when they have nowhere to go? Well, there are plenty of Christians in America, and actually, as we're finding out through our network, in the world. There are plenty of Christians who are saying, hey, my door's open. If a Jewish family needs me, a Jewish person, Jewish couple, Jewish family, the door is open. One night, 1 week, 1 month, nobody knows. This network is not an organization. This network doesn't have a website, a brochure. The network doesn't advertise. The network is not known. The network is not registered. There's money. We don't raise money because we don't want to be controlled by anything, and we don't want to exist so we can be safe. So there is a vetting process, and people have been joining that network. It's been very, very encouraging to get those emails from people once they connect and once we vet them, when they say, like, my place is open. And I'm reminded of the righteous among the nations. You've heard the story, many of you who have me here before. You heard the story of my mother who was your dad was taken by the Gestapo, died in Auschwitz, and she went to hide in the south of France, and then she was on a family that in 2013 became the members of the righteous among the nations of Yad Vashem. Well, I'm looking at the Christians today who are joining the network. I'm looking at them as the new righteous among the nations. And I started talking about it a few years ago. In passing, I explained a little bit. Now, I'm fully invested in this, and this is why I had to leave the other ministry, Chosen People Ministries. And I love everybody at Chosen People Ministries, a wonderful mission agency. 26 years. You don't spend 26 years unless something's done right. But the Lord was calling me to get more involved with the network. And the network, there's no money being risen. It's all volunteers. But there's a lot of work to be done. And I had to be able to make my own decisions to do that. So started the ministry, Shalom in Messiah Ministries. And I think, on the screen, shalominmessiah.com. And if you go to shalominmessiah.com, you can click the connect button, and then you can ask for the notes, my daily devotion, my articles on anti-Semitism, anything that I do, my videos, whatever. It's all free. And then there is a place on that first page on our website where it says, please tell me more about the network that Olivier spoke about. If you click that box, you'll receive an email that will ask you a few questions, and then that email, when you answer the questions, will lead to another email, and there's a vetting process. And eventually, you, if it's something that the Lord is calling you to do, you end up on this list of like-minded believers who say, my house is open when the time comes to help the Jews. Friends, the time is here. That's it. If you've been watching the news, you see what has been happening on the campuses. The time is now. The way I describe anti-Semitism right now, and I know it's kind of a silly way to do it, but to me, I'm a visual person. If anti-Semitism was toothpaste, the whole thing has been squeezed out, and it's impossible to put it back in. It's very messy to try to put. Have you tried to put toothpaste back in the tube and the tube look exactly the way it was before? Impossible. It's out. It's not going back in. It's only going to get worse. It is no longer a matter of what can we do to stop. We're not going to be able to stop anti-Semitism. We have to fight the bully every day. We're not going to be able to stop it until Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace, returns. We know that. But we can help our Jewish friends. We can help rescue and shelter them. And tell you what, when you have a captive audience in your home and you tell them, I'm doing this because I love your people, because your people give me my Bible, your people give me my Messiah, your people give me the prophets, and I just want to do anything I can to bless Israel because my Bible tells me that I should bless you, and I believe every word in the Bible. And then you have, hopefully you'll earn a place, and you'll be able to say, let me tell you a little bit about my Messiah, who really is your Messiah. So that's our prayer, that we can have, what we're doing right now with the network is really humanitarian help. But I'm going to say it, it's been said before, and I will finish with this and I'll pray. You will never find me, if you find me that way, shoot me. You will never find me doing only humanitarian work with the Jews or with Israel. You will find me doing humanitarian work because of the gospel and with the gospel, whichever way we can. Our business cards with the ministry, you turn the business card, there's a QR code, you have the gospel for the Jewish people from the Old Testament. Even on our business cards, everything we do. Only doing humanitarian work and is akin to sending a person to hell on a full stomach. That's not enough. Gospel needs to be heard. Thank you. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Thank you for the patience of the family here to listen to me maybe a little longer. And Lord, thank you for this opportunity to remember all the fallen ones, all the innocent victims of the Shoah, and one of them being my grandfather, Maurice Weinsweig. We did the candles this morning, the Yartzeit candles, Lord. We thank you for that we can do that and remember them, but we remember them every day. And we continue to pray, especially for the families of the hostages in Israel and for the hostages, that they would all come home as soon as possible. Thank you for being in our lives, Lord. Thank you for working in our lives. Continue to work in our lives and guide us and tell us what you want us to do to serve you and further your kingdom. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Thank you.